ego, slammy, ego, slammy, ego, slammy, ay. Hit it up hard, hit it with a strike. From the national anthem to the bottom of the night. I'm in slammy, ego, slammy, ego, slammy, ego, slammy, ay. You already know what's up. What's that? Another home run. We should know the job ain't done till we hold that trophy up. Hey.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to episode 372 of the Talking Friars podcast and YouTube show. Ben Fadden with you here, March 27th, 2023. We're getting closer and closer to opening day. Opening day, obviously, later this week on Thursday afternoon. Hopefully, the weather is going to be good, right? There's not going to be any issues with that. But Blake Snell against German Marquez and the Colorado Rockies. Cannot wait. What a week this is going to be, obviously, with Padres open up. And then the Aztecs, obviously, in the Final Four playing on Saturday. The Padres game is scheduled to be right after the Aztecs game should be done. So there's perfect timing there. Then the Wave play at 7 o'clock later that night. So it's going to be a great Saturday, a great week here in San Diego, and a week that we're going to enjoy, right? Still enjoying the Final Four stuff. And then with the Padres, this is where the roster starts trimming down here. They got to get down to 26 guys before Thursday, or I think they can still have 26 technically on Thursday, but they have to have their roster into the league by, I think, Thursday morning at a certain time. Might be 6 a.m., might be 7 a.m. I don't know what time, but I do remember last year that there was a specific time that the Padres had to get their roster in by on opening day. Even though they played a night game, they played really late. They play earlier today or earlier on Thursday this year. So maybe the time that they have to submit is going to be earlier than it was last year. Remember last year on opening day, they made that trade, right? With Paddock, Pagan going to Minnesota. And then the Padres in return, they got Rogers and they got Brent Rooker, I believe. They might have gotten one other person. But yeah, that was on opening day. So there was a lot of moving parts there. But for this year, I don't expect trades to happen. It seems like the roster is set pretty much. There's a couple names where the Padres still have to decide on, is this guy going to get in over this guy on the roster? Like the last bullpen spot, who's going to start that fifth game of the season? Who's going to get maybe the last bench spot? But it seems like everything is pretty much decided. And that's a good thing, right? When you're a contender, you're trying to go win a World Series, you're trying to go win a division, you want your roster to be pretty set. Because usually when it's set like that, usually it's veterans, right? A lot of veteran players on the roster, so they're obviously going to be on the roster. They have major league contracts, so it's set. And that's the case here with the Padres. A lot of veteran talent, so that's good. So on this episode today, roster projection number 3. I've done 2, obviously, before today. And I wanted to do one final one on the last week before the roster is announced. I did one, I think, at the beginning of spring training. I think it was right after the Super Bowl. Then I did one in the middle of March. I think it was March 14th, something like that. Could be, I think it's somewhere around that date. And then today. And this is obviously going to be my most accurate guess because it's as close as we can get it to the rosters pretty much being decided. I'm going to have a couple more shows before opening day, so stay tuned for that. But I just wanted to do this one this week before any more roster decisions get announced, because we could have roster decisions get leaked within the next couple days. And then obviously we know who's on the roster. I still wanted to kind of have a guess at some of the spots on the roster. All right, so let's start off here with the starting rotation. I'll go starting rotation, then bullpen, outfielders, infielders, including DH, who's on the IL, obviously Tatis with the suspension. Then I'll go through what I think the opening day lineup should be against German Marquez and the Colorado Rockies. So I'm going to get to the starting rotation here, but first a message about Gaglione Bros. Check out Gaglione Bros' famous cheesesteaks and garlic fries on Friars Road. You can visit their website, gaglionebros.com, for their entire menu and enjoy their cheesesteaks and fries at Petco Park and Snapdragon Stadium as well. So let's get to the rotation. We know opening day, it's going to be Blake Snell. We know game 2, it's scheduled to be Nick Martinez. Number 3, Michael Wacha starting the 3rd game. Lugo starting the 4th game. Don't know who's starting the 5th. And then Darvish hopefully will start the 6th game. So 5 of my 6 starters I have on the roster: Snell, Martinez, Wacha, Lugo, Darvish. And then that guy that I hope will get the 5th starter spot, and I think should get that 5th game, start that 5th game, is Jay Groom. I think he's earned it. He did not allow a run until his last outing of spring training. So I think he's looked really good. This was really the first real action I've seen of Jay Groom because I wasn't watching him when he was a prospect with the Red Sox. Didn't really watch him when he was with El Paso a little bit at the end of last year, coming over in the Hosmer trade. But I like what I've seen so far from him. And with Julio Teheran, there was news yesterday. Julio Teheran was reassigned to minor league camp, and it looks like he's going to stay with El Paso. He could opt out. He has that ability to opt out and go sign a deal with a major league club if they offer him a major league spot. But seems like he's just going to go to El Paso. So with that happening, we can just cancel Tate. We can just cross off Teheran's name, and it really comes down to Jay Groom or Ryan Weathers, right, to get that 5th game. And if we're comparing Groom and Weathers, I just don't see Weathers getting that start over Jay Groom. Let me know in the chat if you would rather have Ryan Weathers start over Jay Groom. Let me know. I would rather have Jay Groom. I think he's earned it. I think Ryan Weathers, I think someone on social media earlier today, they were asking me about Ryan Weathers. They hadn't really seen a whole lot from Ryan, and so they just kind of wanted an update. And I thought his spring was an improvement. I was seeing some encouraging signs of improvement with the windup and the fastball still pretty high velocity. Beginning of camp definitely was encouraged from what I saw, encouraged by what I saw. So I think he's continuing to improve, but I for the first start of the season, I wanna give it to the guy that I think earned it in spring training in a starter role, and I think that guy is Jay Groom, based based on the guys that are still fighting for an opening day roster spot. And I guess the fight's over because the last spring training game was today. But guys that are still eligible to make the roster, I guess you could throw Honeywell's name in there too, right? But I see him more of a bullpen guy. He pitched an inning out of the bullpen today in the Padres' last spring training game. So I'm expecting him to be in the Padres' bullpen. So I guess there's a little spoiler there with my bullpen part. But so I would go with Groom as that 5th guy, and then Darvish pitched the 6th game. And then in the bullpen, I'd have Honeywell and Weathers make it. I'd have them make it over Domingo Tapia, who is also still in the running, I guess. I guess they're deciding between Tapia and Weathers. I think Honeywell makes it because he has to go through waivers, and they probably don't want that to happen. They don't want to risk the Padres. They don't want to risk losing Honeywell to another team through waivers. So he's probably going to be on the roster. And a lot of starters pitched today. Hader pitched today. Honeywell came in after Hader and pitched a clean 8th inning, I want to say it was. And then Hader pitched the 7th. So I see Honeywell making it in the bullpen. I see Weathers. If this was my roster, I would have Weathers making it over Tapia. Tapia, yeah, he had a good spring. I think his ERA was under 3, sub 3 ERA. And he does have a little bit of major league experience, but I'm going with Honeywell and Weathers just because they can do both. They can be a long man in the bullpen along with Nabil Krismat, or they could give 1 inning if the Padres need that on a certain night, or they could give 2 innings to finish out maybe a game against the Rockies this coming weekend. Hopefully it's a blowout, and they have Weathers or Honeywell go pitch a couple innings or a few innings and save some of the bullpen, right? Because there's 23 games in the first 24 days. They don't have a lot of off days. So they got to, I think it would be smartest for them to have as many long men as possible. And it's not like these long men suck. They can go provide you an impact inning if you need it, I think, especially Honeywell with his strikeout stuff. I posted this on Twitter earlier today after Honeywell finished that eighth inning, the clean eighth inning, 24 strikeouts that he had this spring. 18 innings of work, 24 strikeouts. So he has that. He has that one inning in him if that's what you want. If you have a lane of right-handed hitters coming up, Honeywell, I mean, that's your guy, I would think, if you need it. I know you go I'm not saying that you go with Honeywell over like Luis Garcia or something, but I'm saying like if you don't want Garcia pitching 3 days in a row this weekend, right? Which I don't think that they would. Maybe they go Honeywell as a righty there, if that lines up, and Weathers and Chris Matt were already used earlier in the series. Again, we don't know Honeywell's on the roster, don't know Weathers is on the roster. We don't know if a decision has been made with Tapia, if he makes it over Weathers or Honeywell. But this is my projection. I think that the bullpen's going to be Hader, Garcia, Tim Hill, Steven Wilson, Nabil Chrismat, Brent Honeywell, and Ryan Weathers. So 6-man rotation to start, and then that means it's 7-men bullpen because there's only 13 pitchers that you're allowed, a maximum of 13 pitchers, and that leaves 13 position players slash DH, right? So let me know your thoughts in the comments. Do you like my bullpen that I have? Do you agree with that? Daniel says AC tweeted Weathers. Did he already? So he already tweeted. What did he tweet? That Weathers made the team? I have not seen that yet. I see Kevin AC 3 hours ago says about Domingo Tapia. Throws 97, 98, has hit 100 miles per hour. Several people in the organization have him making the team. So, look, if you're just going based off of like bullpen firepower, then yeah, I could. There's definitely a case for Tapia to make the roster. I'm just thinking like with the lack of off days, and I think Honeywell's looked pretty good this spring, and there's been encouraging signs from Weathers. I think the Padres, they should want to have as many long men as possible in that bullpen because there's question marks at the back end of the rotation. Who's starting the fifth game? Are you going to have a piggyback with that? Are you going to piggyback Walker or Lugo? I mean, Lugo, I don't know if you'll need to piggyback Lugo, but anything can happen, I guess. He went 6 innings today, 6 strong innings, 2 runs. So I thought he looked good. But yeah, I don't see anything about Weathers. All right, getting to the position players. So I'll start with the outfielders. Obviously, the group of 4 outfielders that I have making it: Juan Soto, Trent Grisham, David Dahl, and Jose Azocar. The update about Juan Soto, well, from him himself, he spoke to the media earlier today after he participated in one of the B games or the B game at I think 10:30 this morning on one of the Peoria backfields. He doubled, he walked 3 times, stole a base, I think, played some left field. So he says he feels good and he feels like he'll be ready for opening day. So that's a positive update. Obviously, he dealt with the calf issue this spring, the oblique, but it seemed like both instances, the Padres were just being precautionary and said, yeah, we don't need this getting worse. So we're just going to shut you down for a couple days or a day, and then we'll test you out once you come back. And it seems like everything's working out on that front. With Nola, he caught today, he doubled today, so it seems like everything's good there. So I have him making the roster. But getting back to the outfielders, Grisham obviously starting in center, Soto in left. And then on opening day with Herman Marquez as a righty, I would think David Dahl gets the start. Kevin AC, he was on the Darren Smith show earlier today on San Diego Sports 760, and he was pretty much saying that there's still a debate going on between about Taylor Colway versus David Dahl, who should make it. But if I were the Padres, I would want David Dahl making the roster because look at the outfield group. Do you want to have 3 righties? Or excuse me, 2. Well, no. 2 righties. I was thinking 2 righties, 2 lefties in the outfield. But I got that mixed up. I'm thinking more 2 righties, 2 lefties on the bench. It would be Odor, Dahl, Azokar, and Cruz, let's say. Let's say Carpenter starting. Or you could have Campy technically be on the bench, right? If you don't want to include Cruz or Carpenter in there. So 2 righties, 2 lefties of 4. There will be 5, but of 4 bench guys, if that makes sense, not including a DH. If you have Dahl on the roster, that should make 2 righties, 2 lefties. But if you have Colway, then that would offset it. I think they want to have a couple lefties on the bench instead of just only having one. Because if Carpenter is, I don't think he's really going to be on the bench that much. Like he'll be DHing, or if there's a tough righty on the mound, and they don't want Kim in there at second, they can move Crony over from first to second and have Carpenter play first. I would go with Dahl. I'd go with Dahl over Colway. I think Dahl has played pretty well this spring. He has the major league experience, and I like giving him a chance to prove himself again at the big league level because he has proven himself at one point in his big league career. So hopefully he can prove it again if he doesn't make the roster, assuming he does. And Jose Azokar, this is a chance for him to prove himself again. He proved himself last year for a good amount of time. He got a good amount of playing time, was obviously on the postseason roster. So here's another shot for him to prove himself while Adam Engel is on the IL dealing with another strain because he had the calf strain, right? And then he got hurt, I think hamstring issue, diving for that ball, getting that ball in the gap the other day in that spring training game. So I think that was last like Thursday or Friday. So that's obviously unfortunate that Engel's not going to be on the roster, but it's a chance for Azokar to prove himself. Like when Engel comes back, are the Padres going to sit there and say, "Hey, Adam, you're ready, but let's give you another week of at bats in AAA to make sure you're really ready because Azokar is playing well"? Or are they going to say, "No, Engel, thank you, you're ready. Yeah, we'll bring you back because Azokar is not doing it here." You know, this is a chance for Azokar, and you can say the same thing about David Dahl when Tatis comes back. Is it going to be Azokar or is it going to be Dahl off the roster? If Tatis returns before Engel returns, right? When Engel and Tatis return, you would think that both go down, but you never know. What if David Dahl is raking? That's going to make it probably hard on the Padres to sit there and say, "Yeah, David Dahl, we're still going to send you to the minor leagues even though you're raking." But I don't know how much of an opportunity he will have to be raking because they might just platoon Azokar and Dahl before Engel or before Tatis get back because Azokar's a righty, obviously. Dahl's a lefty. And again, I'm assuming that Colway doesn't make the roster. I think it's going to be Azokar and it's going to be Dahl. Dahl's a lefty, Azokar's a righty, so they could just platoon it. Kind of like the DH situation with Carpenter and Cruz. So against the lefty, Azokar's in there. Against a righty, then Dahl's in there. They could do that. And both will probably be hitting or they will be hitting in the bottom third of the order. So I see that's how I see the outfield playing out. Infield, obviously Manny, Bogarts, Kim, Crony, Odor, Carpenter, and Cruz. I'm including Carpenter, Cruz there, just lumping the DHs in there with the infielders. Like I said, Carpenter, he will get some playing time, I would think, at first base when there's a tough righty on the mound and they don't want Kim in the lineup that day. They'll move Crony over, have 2 lefties in there, and then they'd be fine with having Nelson Cruz DH. Most days, you'd probably still have Kim at second base, Crony at first. If there's a righty on the mound, then it's going to be Carpenter DHing. But there could be exceptions to that base. Maybe it's not really a tough righty, but it's a tough righty when you're looking at it from Ha-Seong Kim's viewpoint. Like how has he done in his career against this certain pitcher, right? So maybe it's a matchup thing, not just an arm thing. Is this guy a righty or a lefty? Maybe it's this guy's a righty. He's not a great pitcher, but Kim maybe struggles against this certain pitcher. I don't have a name that I can throw out there, but they're probably going to be looking at that too. But yeah, Manny obviously starting at third, Bogarts at short, Kim probably starting opening day at second, Crony at first. Odor, I think he will make the roster. he's playing outfield. They're trying him out in the outfield to increase his versatility. As I said on one of my previous shows, I think it was last weekend, Odor's not going to be trying out the outfield just to go to El Paso. Like, he's making the roster. He was in the lineup today with a bunch of the starters. So, uh, yeah, he's making the roster. He'll be the bench infielder. And I think the Padres, they wanted, at the end of the day, they wanted that lefty bench infielder. They're going to have a lefty outfielder in David Dahl coming off the bench maybe, or starting in right? Beyond Soto, have another lefty outfielder. And they love to increase the versatility of their guys whenever they can. And Odor, he played pretty well this spring, right? I think entering today, he was hitting like 280. So I guess he's earned it. I mean, he hasn't sucked. And with Brandon Dixon, that is a righty. And yeah, sure, he has major league experience, but I think the Padres are pretty good outfield wise right now. Like, they think that Dahl and Azokar is good. Like, they're fine with that. So they were like, we'll probably just send you to triple. Well, in fact, they did say that to Dixon. We'll send you to AAA. If injuries happen, maybe you'll get called up. But Odor, like, the major league experience, he can play third, can play second. They're probably going to try to play him in the corners. At least they have in spring. So increased versatility. I'm not surprised. Based on previous moves, Tim Lopes was another guy who was reassigned. Dixon option because he's on the 40-man. So that's the difference between reassigned to minor league camp and being optioned to minor league camp. Carlton, Pedro Severino, Alfonso Rivas, Lugo, not Seth, but Moises. They were reassigned to minor league camp. Jose Lopez was returned to the Tampa Bay Rays. He obviously was not going to make the bullpen. So, yeah, those were the moves that were made yesterday by the Padres. We'll see if they make any more moves today or tomorrow. Stay tuned at Talking Friars on Twitter, Instagram for that. If it's a move of significance, maybe I'll do a reaction to that here on YouTube, or if not, I'll definitely have it in the next show. So I don't think I don't have any like bold roster prediction that you won't see elsewhere. With the rotation, the bullpen, outfield, infield. With the infield, it seems pretty obvious that that's what the infield's going to be. I'd be very surprised if Odor's not on the roster, just based on him going and playing some outfield recently and him being the only bench infielder left, right? Lopes gone, Dixon gone. So there's that. On the IL, Musgrove, Suarez, Pomeranz, and Engel. Tatis with the suspension. So Musgrove, I have Groom replacing him in the rotation for now. Musgrove, hopefully his first start will be April 11th against the New York Mets in New York. That will be really fun if that's the case. I have Honeywell replacing Suarez, and I have Weathers replacing Pomeranz. Well, it doesn't matter who they're replacing. Honeywell and Weathers replacing Suarez, Pomeranz. And then I have Azokar making the roster thanks to the Engel hamstring issue. And then Tatis with the suspension, so that makes room for David Dahl. So that's my roster. Again, starting rotation: Snell, Martinez, Waka, Lugo, Groom, Darvish. In the bullpen: Hader, Garcia, Hill, Wilson, Chris Matt, Honeywell, Weathers. Outfielders: Soto, Grisham, Dahl, Azokar. Infielders: Machado, Bogarts, Kim, Crony, Odor, Carpenter, Cruz. And then, yeah, IL, Musgrove, Suarez, Pomeranz, Engel, suspension, Tatis for the first 20 games. Devin says Odor outduels Dixon and Lopes. I mean, Odor did not outduel Tim Lopes, I don't think. Tim Lopes had a tremendous spring. I think the Padres, they're just going with the lefty bat. They're going with the big league experience. And they obviously could have Tim Lopes just go to the minors. Tim Lopes, I was impressed by what I saw from him. Gil says, have to believe a small trade of some sort in the works. Transactions have been too quiet, pure speculation. Yeah, I disagree. I don't see a trade happening by opening day. It's AJ Preller, so I know it's hard to believe that, oh, he hasn't had a trade all offseason, all spring training, hasn't done a trade. But that's just the way it is. I mean, look, they made a lot of their moves through free agency. Did they just option Jay Groom? Wow. All right. Well, here's my live reaction to that. So there goes my starting rotation. So I'm guessing the 5th game will be started by either Ryan Weathers or Brent Honeywell. I mean, they could call up Jay Groom, right? Maybe the Padres. So breaking news here. That is correct. I do see in the chat. Jay Groom option to AAA. Padres just tweeted that out. So what they could do, so I would think Domingo Tapia now makes the roster. So I'm going to have to go change that in my Gaslamp Ball article that's going to come out later today. So yeah, scratch what I just talked about with Groom being, I mean, maybe you don't have to scratch it because Jay Groom will end up starting the 5th game. They could call him up and send down Tapia, have Tapia pitch one of the first 4 games in that Colorado series. And then for the 5th game, they just bring up Jay Groom. They have Weathers and Honeywell still be in the bullpen. But 3 spots now for 3 guys because Groom's gone. So I guess it's going to be Tapia, Weathers, and Honeywell getting those final 3 spots. So my prediction was obviously wrong, and there's my immediate reaction. I mean, I'm surprised that they're not going with Jay Groom, but I do understand it. Like, Honeywell had to pass through waivers. Weathers has the major league experience. Maybe they just want to keep Jay Groom built up, and it wasn't a guarantee that he was going to get that 5th start. I don't know. I am surprised by that. But they might just not want to waste that roster spot on someone that's not going to pitch until the 2nd series of the season. So they might just be having Tapia called up for the first 4 games, and then they have Jay Groom start that 5th game. Because I think Jay Groom, he has earned that 5th start. That spring training performance, I know it's just spring training, but it's important to the starting pitchers that are battling for a rotation spot, like Jay Groom was, battling for a roster spot. I'd be fine with Weathers starting the 5th or Honeywell starting the 5th game, but I think Jay Groom has earned it from his performance this spring. And I think Honeywell fits well as a bullpen piece. He can go multiple innings. He can strike out the side if he's going good. A bunch of strikeouts this spring, more strikeouts than innings pitched. So he can go an inning, can go multiple innings. Ryan Weathers can go multiple innings. Probably could go 1 inning as well. With Jay Groom, I'm sure he could do that, but he's had multiple outings, right? Every outing that he had this spring. So it just felt like to me like he was going to be the 5th starter. And again, he might be. And the Padres, they're just not wasting that spot on someone that's not going to pitch the first 4 games of the season. Where Tapia, he'd at least be available to pitch the first 4 games. So we'll see. But yeah, interesting news there. Breaking news there from the Padres. That is interesting. All right, back to the chat. Your thoughts on Jay Groom being sent down by the Padres? Feel free to put those in the chat. I will definitely get to those here in a second, but first, I want to tell you about the best and easiest way to play fantasy sports. It's Underdog Fantasy. They have great pick'em games and best ball tournaments. In pickup games, just pick higher or lower on 2 to 5 players' stats, and you can win up to 20 times your money in a single night. You can go cross-team, cross-league, and even cross-sport. Best ball revolves around the draft, which is what every fan loves the most about fantasy, and it eliminates the hassle of having to manage your roster all season long, resulting in a fun and easy fantasy product. How does it work exactly? You enter a contest where you participate in a snake draft against other users. That lineup that you drafted competes against every other draft in the entire contest. The better the combined performance of your team, the more money you win. After your lineup is all played, Underdog will take the best performing players and automatically set them as your starting lineup. That's it. No waivers, no trades, no worrying about who to start or sit. After you complete your draft, your part is done. Underdog Fantasy offers best ball in a variety of ways, including daily contests, weekly contests, playoff contests, and season-long contests. You can either enter into these and compete against thousands of other entrants for huge prizes, or, if you'd like, you can enter into a private draft with friends and family to compete for a smaller prize pool. Underdog keeps it super simple with their easy-to-use website and mobile apps. Sign up now by clicking the link in the description or by using the promo code TALKINGFRIARS, and you'll double your first deposit up to $100 in bonus cash when you make your first deposit of $10 or more. So if you deposit $100, you get $100 free. If you deposit $10, you get $10 free. All right, back to the chat here. Devin asks, are you going to opening day? Yes, I am. Again, I'm surprised by this Jay Groom news. I thought he earned that start. Nothing against Ryan Weathers. He can start. Kevin Acey saying on Twitter here, Jay Groom option to AAA. Seems Ryan Weathers has earned his way back to the major leagues with a strong spring and will almost certainly be starting the 5th game of the season for the Padres. I thought Jay Groom earned that start over Weathers. I think, like, I'm fine with Weathers being – I'm fine with him getting the start. I'm fine with Weathers being on the roster. But Jay Groom had a sub-2 ERA in the spring. I know it's spring, but, again, it matters for guys that are fighting for roster spots. Like, that's not the time you're working on stuff, right? No, you're trying to go make an impression, and Jay Groom definitely made that impression. A strong impression. Devin says, surprise Groom was optioned. I thought he was the obvious choice to pitch the 5th game, but I guess they want him ramped up a little bit more. Do they want him ramped up? Is that why? I don't know. Jay Groom, let's see what his spring training numbers were. 1.29 ERA, 14 innings, 13 strikeouts. Going to his game logs here. Just seeing how many innings he threw his last outing. Yeah, I mean, last outing he only pitched into the 4th inning. But what did Weathers do his last outing? You know? Let's see what Weathers did in his last spring training outing. 23 years old, had a 4.91 ERA in spring. I know ERA is not everything, but that's just the basic stat. Going to game logs here, spring training. He went 4 2/3 innings. So I guess he's a little bit more built up. It says he threw 40 pitches in that last outing. That was on the 23rd against the Royals. And Jay Groom in his last outing, let's see how many pitches he threw. 33. That's not a huge gap. So it seems like whoever starts that 5th game is going to get piggybacked by Chris Matt or Honeywell. Maybe Honeywell starts the game. I don't know. But yeah, I like you, Devin. I am surprised that Jay Groom was optioned. Devin says, I think Honeywell had to make the roster because of his major league deal, and the team doesn't want to lose him outright to another team. Yep, I said that earlier. Yep, totally agree with that. All right. Getting to my opening day lineup. Let me know in the comments, in the chat, or if you're watching this on replay on YouTube or podcast platforms, let me know on social media. What would be your opening day lineup for the Padres? Who do you want in that opening day lineup? It's against the Colorado Rockies. German Marquez on the mound, so he's a right-handed pitcher. So you would think that the Padres, they're going to have the lefties in there, right? Crony, obviously Soto, Carpenter, Grisham, right? So there's a little hint for what my lineup's going to look like. So this is what I would do. I would have Grisham lead off, play center. Soto hit second, play left. Manny hit third, play third. Bogarts hitting cleanup at short. Crony at first, batting fifth. Carpenter DHing, batting sixth. Nola catching, batting seventh. David Dahl in right field, batting eighth. And then Ha-Sung Kim as that second leadoff guy playing second base. With the righty on the mound, have a couple lefties up at the top of the order. Trent Grisham, I really like what I've seen out of him so far this spring. He's looking pretty dang good, aggressive. I think he'd be a good opening at bat. Now, I know early in spring, Bogarts was leading off a lot, and maybe he does lead off, but with a righty on the mound, I think the Padres would want to go two lefties right off the bat. But maybe Grisham likes being at the he led off today in spring training, so maybe that was just a hint for us. Like they're trying it there. They're really thinking about it. How does Trent feel about being in the leadoff spot? Does he like that? How do the Padres think about that? Like, do they like that? From their point of view, I'd have Grisham lead off the way he's swinging the bat, and having Bogarts hit fourth. I'm totally fine with that as well, obviously. And Bogarts will be hitting fourth when Tatis returns. So, and Crony will hit fifth. So that would be the same 2 through 5 if that lineup is correct. That'll be the same 2 through 5 when Tatis gets back. I love the Soto, Machado, Bogarts, Crony. And then Carpenter hitting sixth, because after Crony, I'm pretty much going just based off of like talent. And I kind of want to stagger it too. So starting with Carpenter, that's a lefty. Then Nola a righty, Dahl lefty, Kim righty. So there's not a lane right there, right? With Grisham, Soto, there's back-to-back lefties, but is Soto really a lane? Is that really where a manager's like, oh, back-to-back lefties, one of them Soto, let's attack that? I don't think so. And you have a righty in Kim, and you have a righty in Manny sandwiching Grisham and Soto. So that's how I would do it. So I'd have Nelson Cruz on the bench. I'd have Zokar on the bench. Campy on the bench. Who else? Odor. I'd have them on the bench. So Grisham, Soto, Manny, Bogarts, Crony, Carpenter, Nola, Dahl, Kim. That's how I would go. Devin says he'd go with Kim, Soto, Machado, X-Man, Crony, Cruz, Carpenter, Campy, Grisham. Why would Cruz? So Cruz and Carpenter are playing. Cruz, Carpenter, and Kim are playing. I think most days it's going to be two of those three are playing. If it's a tough righty, then maybe Cruz is DH and Carpenter's at first, Crony's at second, so Kim's not playing. Or other days, Kim is playing and one of Cruz or Carpenter. I don't think both are playing. But I could see Grisham hitting ninth as the second leadoff. But a righty's on the mat. Well, Nola and Campy are righties, so it doesn't matter. But I think Snell's more comfortable with Nola catching. So I see Nola catching. I'm talking about opening day lineup. So I see Nola catching, and I see Cruz not being in the lineup. I don't think Kim, Cruz, and Carpenter are going to be in the lineup. Where do you have Carpenter playing the outfield? You must, Devin, I think you must have, because you have Kim at where? Second? Soto in left, Manny at third, Bogarts at short, Crony at second, Carpenter at first. Oh no, Cruz DHing, right? Okay. So you don't have Dahl. No, wait, but because you have Soto in left, Grisham in center. Who's in right? Who's the right fielder? Carpenter? because you have Kim in there. So you have Carpenter playing right field. He hasn't played the outfield, I don't think, at all this spring. So I don't see that lineup happening. Okay, Devin. Yeah. Sorry, this is a little delayed probably. So yeah, Devin says Carpenter and right. Yeah, that's not going to happen. He hasn't played at all in right field this spring, I don't think. Unless I forget a game, even if it was just one game, I don't think they'd put him out there on opening day with one game under his belt in the outfield. I don't see that. Yeah, I agree with Gil. I don't see that happening. And I think with Grisham, Ocean View Coffee Crew says Grish 9-hole for sure. I don't know about it. I don't know about for sure, but I think it's either the 1-hole or the 9-hole. Lead off or the 9 spot. Lead off or second lead off. Right? I think that's how they would. I think that's how the Padres would do it. I'm encouraged by what I'm seeing from Trent. I'm going to do a predictions episode coming up this week, and I have a good one for Trent. All right. Anything else to get to here? Was that the only news that the Padres put out today? That they just put out during the show? Jay Groom has been sent down. I just want to make sure that's the only news. I think that is. All right. Well, that's going to do it. Hopefully you enjoyed my roster projection. Obviously, in the middle there, it was messed up. Well, I still think it should be Groom, but obviously in the middle there, we learned that Jay Groom was not going to make the or he was being sent down, so he's not making the opening day roster. Maybe he still starts the 5th game. They call him up, and they just don't want to race. They don't want to waste that roster spot on someone that's not going to pitch the first 4 games. I'm still holding out that hope, but it's not the end of the world if Weathers or Honeywell starts the game. I'm fine with that on the 5th game of the season. I just think Groom has earned it. But let me know, social media at Talking Friars on Twitter, Instagram, or in the comments here on YouTube. Let me know what you think of the roster projection. What would your roster be? Your opening day lineup? Let me know in the comments. Opening day, it's almost here, a few days away. See ya.